Welcome to the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside cold, chilly Louisville, Kentucky in late May. And in Maryland, John, where I'm sure it's probably better weather. How you doing, John Webster?
Hey, doing real good. Hope everybody else is doing well. Gary, this weather here is still tricky, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's about 68 to 70 today, drizzling, and they're calling for rain for the next 3, 4, 5 days. So it's going to be tricky in Maryland as well, too. So we'll see what's going to happen. And another great week in sports. We're going to have an opportunity to talk about NBA playoffs. We're going to talk about my beloved Orioles, and then we'll wrap up at the end with some hockey and some Indy 500.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yep.
getting it
And we
started, man. NBA playoffs. Indiana and the Knicks. 2-1. None of the games have been won by the home team. Was it just a faux pas that the Knicks won the other night? Or does Indiana need to be worried?
John, I'm going to say Indiana needs to be worried because that was their night to throw the knockout punch. They appeared to have it early in the third quarter. Well, really, the middle two quarters. I think I can't remember exactly what point I tuned out, but I think it was early in the third. And I don't know if you saw like when they came out of commercial and they showed this clip of Foghorn Leghorn, spanking the dog with the plank like he always does in the cartoons, and saying that's what the Pacers were doing to the Knicks. And I cracked up and I said, "Yeah, that's about it." And you know how much I love Foghorn Leghorn on that one, but I pretty much had tuned out at that point, and I was surprised the next morning to wake up and see that the Knicks had rallied. And the reason why I feel like the Pacers need to be worried about that a little bit, John, is because Karl Anthony Towns stepped up in a way that nobody expected in the clutch. You refer to him as the aircraft carrier that a team needs, which is what he is. He wasn't doing him any favors shooting three-pointers in the first half, but 20 of his 24 points in the fourth quarter when they needed it, when they looked down and out and dead and stinking like Elmo Jenkins, as we like to say sometimes. And with no, disrespect to any Elmo Jenkinses out there. But that's what they needed because they were really starting to look like maybe a 1.5 horse team with Jalen Brunson, and Indy was geared up to really stop him. For Karl Anthony Towns to step up and hit those kind of shots and hit the kind of baskets really that he's supposed to when you're the 6'11", 7-footer. Yeah, a three-pointer is nice every now and then, but what was he getting? He was getting twos. He was getting close to the basket. He was shooting mid-range jumpers. He was doing everything he is supposed to do. And that's what the Knicks need. And that's why I'd say if you're Indy and you've been geared up to stop Jalen Brunson up to this point, now you got to worry about Karl Anthony Towns. And if those two are bottled up, guys like Mitchell Robinson, even though he can't shoot a free throw to save his life, the guy can get to the basket. He is a finisher. You have to account for that whole team now. Mikal Bridges. So yeah, you should be worried. And the main thing is the Knicks were content to let Indy punch themselves out. And I think when they thought they had it in hand that the Knicks couldn't respond, the Knicks did. And haven't we seen that before in the playoffs in terms of, a 20-point deficit and they've made it up? I guess this is what the third time now, maybe the fourth time in these playoffs that they've done it. So again, the Knicks finally figured out it's like we have to play 48 minutes and yeah, we can be run out, let that jackrabbit get out there at first. But, it's how you finish the race, not how you start.
Interesting comments, Gary. First thing I want to do is correct something I said last week. I made a mistake, and I said Julius Randle was playing good ball for the New York Knicks. As we all know, Julius Randle is playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves. My mistake. I apologize. I was meaning to say OG. I can't never say his name right. Anaway,
Ananobi. OG
Ananobi.
Ananobi. Yeah.
OG Ananobi. That's what I meant to make the comment for. That's the first thing. But now, let me get into the Knicks and the Pacers. Indiana started this series out really strong. They won both games away. Matter of fact, the first game in the series, they were down by 20 points, and they came back and they beat the Knicks.
Yep.
So we go into game three, and in game three, Indiana comes out, guns are blazing, and they're wearing out the Knicks. They go up by 20. This is where, Gary, I think the game changed. And I think this is where, I won't say the game is lost, but this is where I think the momentum changed. When they went up by 20, they only went in the locker room up by 13 at halftime. I thought that was a morale takeaway because they had all the energy. Halliburton had just stolen the ball at half court and was doing going on a layup. They called timeout to go up by 20. But for the last 5 minutes of that first half, the Knicks whittled that lead down to 13 points. Another thing, I think it was different that they went and started Mitchell Robinson and they brought Josh Hart off the bench. Now, here's how that works. Since it worked, Thibodeau is a genius. If it didn't work, then you want to try to fire him today. So, you know, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. One of the things they said that does when you put Robinson in the game, that helps Karl Anthony Towns because he can become more of a forward as opposed to a center. And he's more comfortable. That's what he was doing last year at Minnesota because Gobert was the center. Karl Anthony Towns had an unbelievable fourth quarter, scored 20 points. I think he outscored Indiana by himself in the fourth quarter. Yeah, that you can't take anything away from the Knicks. No lead is safe for either team.
Nope.
I will say this. The game tonight between the Knicks, game 4, is very important for both teams.
Yep.
Indiana needs to regain this momentum. This is similar to what they had in the last series against Cleveland. They won the first 2 games at Cleveland, came home and lost to Cleveland 2-1, and had to win that 4th game to regain the momentum. I think they need to do the same thing, but they got to keep in mind the Knicks are not a team you take out early. You got to take them out late. They do not go away. I think one of the things that Indiana does a good job with, but they got away from it, I don't know why, they kept taking advantage of Jalen Brunson, making him have to check somebody in the low post. Brunson got in foul trouble, and I think they got away from that. I think you got to continually go at Brunson. You got to make him play defense, and you got to make him, as much as you can, not be the central figure on offense with the ball in his hand. If he is the central figure with the ball in his hand, you're in trouble on defense because they're going to find a way to take advantage of situations.
Yeah.
Josh Hart coming off the bench, I don't see it as, honestly, a great thing or a bad thing. I just think it was something Thibodeau did to try to change things. I think Josh Hart is somebody that's going to play very hard and very well, whether he comes off the bench or whether he is starting. He's that kind of a player. I think playing Mitchell Robinson, they say that will help Karl Anthony Towns, but Robinson is not going to give you a lot of offense. He'll go out there and try to shoot a 3, but that's not somebody you need to be worried about. I think what Indiana has to do in game 4 is get back to what they did the first 2 games in the first half of game 3. Continue to push the ball, continue to get the ball in everybody's hands. That's not a team, and I've said it to you before, Gary, that's not a team all about Halliburton. That's not a team all about Miles Turner. They have many different ways to beat you. And another thing that they got to look at tonight is Naismith with his sprained ankle. Will he be able to go? That's going to be a key as well. They got to get back to what they do. They have so many weapons. Pascal Siakam can take them apart. McConnell off the bench, Matherin out the bench. We've gone over it over and over again, Gary. They are a team that puts pressure on you, not only on defense, but they put pressure on you when they are on offense because they have so many multifaceted ways to score and take you apart while you are playing defense against them. Will be a very interesting game on game 4. Rooting for Indiana, want Indiana to pull it out, but I will say this to you, as I said before the show came on, if they don't get this game, I think they're really in trouble. I think they're in trouble. I won't say they're going to lose the series, but they are really in trouble going back to New York 2-2. They really need to get a hold of this series again and win game 4.
Yeah. The question I was going to ask you is, did game 3 swing momentum toward the Knicks for the series, or is it just maybe for heading into this game? And the reason why I say that is that with the Knicks, as we saw in the first 2 games, and I really I think it was probably game 2 when I was screaming at the TV when Jalen Brunson jacked up that ill-advised 3. I mean, he's got a hand in his face. It's a contested 3 from beyond his range. Again, one that could have tied the game, I think. For New York, but he puts up really this awful shot. And I remember thinking afterward, he's doing too much. You come to game 3, again, you let, I should say they let Indiana, just really, push the pace, built that big lead. I think they coasted a little bit going into the half, to your point about letting that 20-point lead, get whittled down to 13. And that was kind of the beginning in the momentum swing that ultimately went the Knicks' way. The Knicks have to find a way to kind of play Indy's game with the kind of pace that's helped them this year. That's helped them in these playoffs in particular. Yes, it's Jalen Brunson's team in essence, and a lot goes through him. But less, I think, has to go through him, and more has to be delegated to Karl-Anthony Towns. John, you say it all the time. When you're that big, the biggest guy on the floor most of the time, an aircraft carrier. He's the guy that I think really needs to help set the tone and the pace for New York. Yes, they've got to get back quickly on defense because of how fast Indiana is. I mean, it's a breathless pace that they play at both ends. And Thibodeau has to figure out a way to kind of get them, to kind of keep pace with the Pacers defensively, limit their opportunities, much like they did, in that second half and particularly in that fourth quarter, but really try to push their own pace because, I mean, the Knicks are not a slow team either. They've got to assert their pace and maybe make Indiana adjust to them a little bit. But the one thing they can't do is come down and jack up logo threes as their first option, which of course drives both of us crazy. Am I right?
You're absolutely correct, Gary.
I mean,
And back to your original question, momentum. I think tonight the momentum going into the game is with the Knicks. If the Knicks win, the momentum for the series is with the Knicks. If Indiana wins tonight, I think the momentum is with Indiana. But as we speak on momentum, let's look at that momentum going out west.
Yeah. Can I make one more point about the East though? Here's the thing. I think that you talk about both. You talk about the visiting team has won all of the games. What's the one thing, John, about playing on the road that I think, you talk about going into a hostile environment on the one hand, but what's the one thing I feel like really benefits a visiting team, in particular in the playoffs? They
You
have
tell them,
nothing.
Gary.
They have
Go ahead.
nothing to lose. They're
Okay.
they're a lot more looser. I think sometimes when you play at home, you're kind of tight because you're expected to win at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fans are going to be yelling stuff at you as a visiting team. I feel like in a sense you can kind of play your own game, and we've seen that in a lot of these series, where the visiting teams came out and won game one or game two. They gained that split, including with OKC. As you know, we'll get to them, but I think there's a looseness that comes with being a visiting team. And with the Knicks, it's like, again, they know what they're going to face going into Gamebridge Field House. The Pacers knew what they were facing going into Madison Square Garden. And I think they kind of fed off that and just say, all we got to do is play their game because the home fans are going to be home fans. And that's the thing. I think if the Knicks are going to win this and even the series and regain home court advantage, such as it is in this series or as it isn't, that they just have to kind of play with that looseness again. Take the punches, get punched in the nose. It might take a quarter or two or something, but let them punch themselves out and just find a way to counterpunch and find a way to really dictate the tempo. But I think in the Knicks case, having seized that momentum with a game that everybody thought that they were going to lose, you got to follow up with that and try to dictate the tempo and put Indy back on its heels.
Great point, Gary. Great points. Now, speaking of momentum and putting people on their heels, let's look out west. OKC came up with a big game win in what was that? Game four. They came up with a big win. Now what happens? They're up 3-1. What happens now?
They have, well, obviously they have to close it out at home. When you've got that kind of momentum, it'd be one thing I'd say. Well, winning game four was huge, especially coming off of a 40-point blowout loss in game three. They led that game pretty much, all the way. And most importantly, and this is the thing about OKC that I've become impressed with in these playoffs, is that there's always a game where they mature a little bit more. And game four was a perfect example. They got big three scoring, or let's just say they got three big scores that combined for 90 plus points. Their main guy got his points, but Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams were complementary scores, which is what they needed. In fact, that was, I think, just between the three of them, they countered a lot of the statistical advantages that Minnesota had in that game. I mean, you look at the stats, and Minnesota seemed to have the advantage in just about every category, but they lost by 2. And defensively, I think that was probably the key for them. There was a point where, in those final 2 minutes, where you just felt like, okay, when they're 7 points up, you feel a little more comfortable if you're OKC. But they got too comfortable. Let them get within 3. Let them get within a basket. I think it even got within 1 in those closing minutes. But they found a way. One, they got to the foul line, made their free throws, and then forced Minnesota to make the mistake. And really, it's just they had their guys in the right places at the right times defensively, which is what they didn't have in game 3.
Well, interesting series. You can see the maturity of OKC from last year after they lost to Dallas in the playoffs. They've really matured this year. When they lose a game, it's like water off their back. They move on to the next game. You lost by 42 to Minnesota in game 3. You just forget about it and you come back. One of the things I think that hurts Minnesota quite a bit, they don't do a great job of taking care of the ball. I think they had 20 plus turnovers last night. OKC is the number 1 ranked defense in the NBA. They are tough. You got to think about where you are on the court with them all the time. You put the ball on the floor, there's somebody always coming behind you to swipe it away. You got Gilgeous-Alexander. And then I tell you, I'm gonna tell you. I mean, I talk about Chet Holmgren because he wants to bring the ball up court and shoot threes sometimes. But I mean, he is a rim protector, and I guess that's
Yeah.
the that's the
Right. Yeah.
compromise you got. You got to give him a few of those shots and let him do a couple things because he's a very talented ball player. Very, very talented. He made a key block near the end of the game. It looked like Minnesota had a layup, and he smacked it off the board. Just really great. Another thing that their defense did last night, and it's done it throughout the series, it has made life very miserable for Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards got 15 shots last night in game four. 15 shots. That's not what Anthony Edwards usually does. He gets more shots than that. But that defense is tough. I think he had 2 shots in the first quarter. You
Yeah.
know, they are just a very swarming defense. And they come at you in waves. You know, again, this is a team that is, to me, is very similar to Indiana because Indiana goes 10 deep. OKC goes 10 deep. I mean, you're starting off with Jalen Williams. You're starting off with Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren. Then you got Hartenstein. Then you got Lou Dort. Then you got Caruso. Then you got another Jalen Williams coming off the bench. They go 9 or 10 deep too, Gary. They're a tough
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
Very tough, very tough. Can score. The thing that I wish they would do a little bit more as a team, they shoot a fair amount of threes. I know I'm old fashioned. I wish they wouldn't shoot as many,
Yeah,
but
say it.
I,
Come on, Pastor, say it.
I get it. I get it. I understand it, but I just wish they would shoot a few less. Why I like Gilgeous-Alexander so much as well as Anthony Edwards. Both of them are very proficient at 3-point shots, but their mid-range game is unbelievable. And that mid-range game is important. Gilgeous-Alexander last night went to the foul line 15 times. Just me, Gary, just my opinion. You're not going to the foul line 15 times if all you're shooting is threes. That's
Right.
just me. Maybe I'm wrong. But
dribble drive. I mean, if not, okay, it can end one of 3 ways. You drive to the basket, make the basket. You miss the basket, or you draw a foul. There's nothing wrong with going to the hole. And of course, SGA being from Kentucky and learning that under Calipari, that's the kind of thing that he did in Lexington, and that's the kind of thing that that serves him well. When he has games like that, what's he doing? He's drawing contact. He's drawing coverage. And when he draws coverage, he finds a way to maybe step back, loft up that little soft jumper, that little soft bank shot, off the top of the window, and it goes through. He creates great shots, but he does that by going to the basket, making other guys react, and then he adjusts on the fly.
And I'm going to tell you something else. You didn't hear much about Julius Randle last night.
Exactly.
And Julius Randle has to play an important part to this series. He has to give his points and be a distributor and a rebounder down low. They got 21 out of Gilgeous-Alexander's cousin. What is his name? McDaniel.
Alexander Walker.
Yeah, they got 21 out of Alexander Walker. They got 21 out of DiVincenzo. Yeah. And there's one other, I think, Nas Reed may got 20. But the key, the straw that mixes this drink, that steers this drink, is Anthony Edwards. If you're getting all that points from everybody else, still very important to get 25 to 30 from Anthony Edwards. And I think OKC is in the driver's seat. I think they have the momentum. And I also think you need to go home and close them out before Minnesota wakes up and thinks they can stay in this series a little bit longer. Take them out of their next game, game 5, end it. end it and keep moving, man.
Yep.
But
I mean that's about it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you have a chance to, finish them off as as they say in the movies, you got to do it. You just have to do it. It's about closing because a 3-1 lead, we've seen many times that it can be overcome. And in these playoffs, I mean, we've seen how 20-point leads can be erased. But if you're a team like OKC, you've been the best team all season in the league. You've got the best defense. Just keep flexing that muscle. I mean, again, throw the knockout punch. If you got them on the ropes, finish them off.
yeah, you bring up some good points, man. We're going to see how these series end. I know I was saying I got Indiana winning that Eastern Conference final. I think you got the Knicks, and I think we both agree OKC is going to win the West.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we'll see how this thing plays out. But Gary, let's talk about two things as we wrap up to the end of the show. Tell us about the hockey playoffs quickly, and after you tell us about hockey, tell us about the Indy 500, man.
Well, okay. Quickly about hockey. The Florida Panthers are showing why they are the defending Stanley Cup champions. Yes, Carolina avoided elimination with the kind of game, with the kind of offense that beat the Caps in the previous rounds. The problem is they entered that game with a 16-4 deficit, scoring deficit to the Panthers. And the Panthers, I guess I could just say they had an off game. Yeah, they were bound to get hit in the mouth at some point. But the Florida Panthers just have a wicked offense that I mean, it's just relentless. They forecheck well, they pass well, they're very, very fast. And and I think again with a 3-1 lead, and even going into Carolina, Carolina until they won the other night, I think they had lost something like 15 consecutive East Coast Finals games, which is like a ridiculous stat. And it just shows like, wow, this is a chance to go to the Stanley Cup final. They can't even win a game. Florida knows that. Florida's the defending champion, and I think that they really have a chance to close it out on the road. Dallas and Edmonton in the West. Edmonton is up to 2-1, and Dallas is. I mean, again, I think this is one that can go 7 games, but the one that I'm really paying the most attention to is the Eastern Conference, and the Florida Panthers. They really have got a squad, and I think if they can win this series, that they can go back to back, which says something a lot about hockey in South Florida. Now, moving north toward the Indy 500, the just concluded Indy 500, which ended with Alex Palou, the dominant driver of the series, the last 3 years now, 3 of the last 4 years, and definitely this early part of the season. I think he's won for like the 4th time in 5 races, and won, of course, the race that everybody wants to win. Um, again, not surprised with that because the guy, good racers win there eventually. I mean, if you have a track record of competing well there, eventually going to break through. That's what he's done, and I think his victory really kind of restored some shine after really a week of controversy with the Team Penske cars, neither one of which finished the race after having to start from the back of the field because of, well, essentially a cheating scandal. For modifying the cars. 3 more cars were disqualified after the race, and there's something that has to be done, I think, within the series to either with the inspection process or these modifications, because it seems now like a lot of these cars have been modified, and everybody, they noticed it on the Penske cars, but cars are failing post-race inspection. So that series has to really examine how they inspect the cars, and come up with standards or something that these kind of things don't happen, because it's much like what I've said about cheating at the Kentucky Derby. It cost Bob Baffert, 4 years in a premier race. Why? Because he messed with the preeminent event in horse racing. You don't mess with the Indy 500. You don't mess with the Daytona 500 if you're in auto racing. And Penske, which owns the series, the track, and three teams, found that out the hard way. They were bystanders in essentially on their home track. And Alex Below, the dominant driver, showed why he is the dominant driver in that series.
Gary, go home. Go ahead and take us home, man.
Well, let's see. Wow, we've got French Open going on. We've got WNBA, even with Caitlin Clark out for at least 2 weeks with a quad strain. Let's see. We've got the Baltimore Orioles, that are starting to win a few games now, which I see has put a smile on your face. And of course, first of all, congratulations to Cornell, which won the NCAA lacrosse title over my Maryland Terps. I'm disappointed that the Terps couldn't finish, but hey, getting there is half the battle. They're always in that mix. At some point, they're going to get another title soon. So, congratulations to Cornell and congratulations to Maryland for a good season. Folks, watch us on YouTube, watch us on Facebook, watch sports. John, say goodbye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in with us again this week. Gary said it all. Watch some football, watch some basketball, watch the WNBA, watch some soccer, watch some hockey, but above all, just watch some sports. Come back and see us again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.